to sewing repairs and alterations. Now in this particular video I'm going to show you how to shorten the classic pair of jeans. Now I've had these jeans brought in and they've been pinned so I can see exactly where these jeans need to be shortened to. Now I'm going to show you two ways of shortening jeans, but of course the process and the outcome is exactly the same, so the results are identical for each process. So you can just follow the video and then you can choose which process is then best for you. So I've got my jeans laid out here, so let's get started on the alteration. Okay, now before we start the alteration I'm going to go over the equipment that you're going to need in order to do this. So first of all, you're going to need some small embroidery scissors because these are very sharp and they just cut off the threads when you've stitched a certain area. You're going to need fabric scissors because of course we're going to be cutting off the excess of the jeans there. So we need some fabric scissors. You need a tape measure because you need to get this exactly correct. So you need your tape measure. Pins of course. Okay. And of course you need your threads. Now with denim jeans, the thread colour of the top stitching is always an unusual colour compared to the actual jeans themselves, even though you might not have even really noticed that, and they do blend in quite well. Now these are blue jeans, yet the stitching is like a kind of browny grey colour. I mean, I've seen red stitching, pink stitching, green, and they have the most unusual colours for the top stitching of jeans, and they've always had that. Now, to get this thicker fabric, like the thicker thread that you see on jeans, what you need to use for that is buttonhole thread. It's generally about twice, 3 times the thickness of a standard thread. So to get that effect, that is the thread you're going to need. Now of course in the industry all of the machines are threaded up with this thread, whereas us, we're going to be using domestic machines, so of course our threads are going to be a little bit different. And the trick is to put this in the bobbin case only, or the bobbin, and then of course the bobbin goes in the case, and that's the trick. You need to put this in the bobbin only, and then you have a standard thread which threads on the top of the sewing machine. That's the trick to get this same look on your jeans. Now of course you do need to get a thread which of course is going to match this stitching completely, okay? So that is imperative to get this exact same look. So that's your threads, and also what I found as well is the best foot to use is known as a walking foot. Now the walking foot constantly grips on the cloth because it's got 2 sole plates here which of course go up and down, and one part of the foot is constantly gripping the fabric, ensuring that you get a really nice even feed for the thread when it goes on the sewing machine. Okay, so I always use the denim jeans and top stitching this walking foot. Okay, so now we know all of the equipment that we need. Okay, we're going to be taking this then over to the ironing board for the next process. Now I did say that I'm going to show you 2 different processes. Now the first process is to press the seam in place before you stitch it. The second process, you can just take it over to the sewing machine and you can roll the fabric as you go and stitch it. But the outcomes are exactly the same. Okay. Now I would recommend, if you're new to this, to do the first thing, to do your pressing first and then stitch it. And when you get more confident in sewing and doing alterations, then you can do the second technique, because it's all to do with the even of the thread and the way you control your stitches really on this. So the first thing what you need to do is, now that these jeans have been pinned, what we can do is grab the leg which has been pinned and just move the pins over to the actual bottom hem. So as you can see, this thread is folded over and this is where they want their bottom hem to be. So simply transfer the pins to the total bottom of the hem there, like that, and do that with all of the pins. Now I've just been given 2 pins because really when you're shortening jeans you only need to pin one leg and at the back, okay, unless of course you've had an accident and you've got one leg shorter than the other, or the person you're sewing them for has that, but otherwise this is the way to do it. And of course you can see now where this hem is going to be. Now I can see from that we're going to have enough room there so we can just cut this off. Otherwise you're going to have to unpick this, press it flat and then cut it. But I can see that I don't need to do that because there's going to be enough here. So we're going to take this over to the ironing board, give this a press, and we're going to start cutting the hem. Okay, so the first thing what we need to do is just press this hem nice and flat, so that at least then the working area is going to be easy to see. Okay, that's fine. And again with this one. Like that. Okay, so now that you've got that, what we need to do is we need to see where our cutting is going to be. Now of course these pins here depict where the actual hem is going to be, but of course that's going to be the finished hem. But we need our seam allowance. So what we need to do is measure what these jeans are as the turn back. Now how this hem is created is it's folded over and then it's folded again and then it's stitched down. So it's basically double what you see here. So if I measure that, it measures 1 centimetre. Now they always measure around 1 to 1.5 centimetres with the hem here. It's usually a centimetre. So that we know is going to be a 2 centimetre seam allowance. So that's what we need to have. Now I always measure the pin closest to the hem. Okay, now as you can see these are slightly different as the person has pinned them. Okay, so you need to go to where the longest pin is. Okay, so what I mean is the pin which is closest to the actual hem here, so that means that it's the longest one away. Okay, so it creates the longest pair of jeans. So this pin here is 3.5, but this one is 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to go with this pin here. So we're going to take this one out and we're going to then put another pin with our 2 centimetre seam allowance, which is there. So this is now what we're going to be cutting off. Now I'm going to measure this and it comes to 1.5 centimetres. So make sure that you've got everything out of the way and you're just cutting the 1.5 centimetres. Just measure that. We can go in a little bit more. Yeah, so that's fine. So we've got our 2 centimetre seam allowance there. That's 1.5. So now what we can do is we can just cut this 1.5 centimetres right along. Like that. Okay, there we go. So that's that cut. And of course this here is 1.5 right along. And we've got our 2 centimetre seam allowance here. So whatever we cut on our first leg, we now need to cut on the second leg. Okay, so make sure that this is all flat. Make sure that the hems lie exactly the same, like that. And give it another press if you like that. And lay this first fabric, or this first hem that you cut off, over the top of there, and cut the other side. Now this process, I find that you can never ever go wrong and cut one leg shorter than the other. It's impossible to do that, because you hear of disasters where you've got seamstresses where they've actually cut one leg shorter than the other. Really, I just don't know how that happens. They're obviously not concentrating, but this here will never ever happen in this way. So now that we've cut our bottom hems off, we're now ready to start pressing this in place. Now this is the first technique what I'm going to show you. Okay, we're going to go with the pressing technique, and then we can go over to the sewing machine and I can show you this technique finished off and also the second technique. Okay, so let's just start off by pressing this. So what we need is a sleeve board, okay, for this. And you need to turn the leg, or the legs, inside out for this. Now, like I say, I'm only going to show you this pressing technique, this first technique, on one of the jeans legs. But you, of course, if you're going to be using this technique, you need to do this on both. So you need to fold over your first hem 1 centimetre. Right, now I'm just going to get my tape measure. Here we are. So you just need to fold that over 1 centimetre, like that. Okay, now we can make note where that pin is, and just press right round. Okay, now just keep measuring this as 1 centimetre, okay? Now you don't need to pin this, because with denim it will just stay where it wants to. When you've pressed it, it'll just stay where it is, so it's really easy to work with, this denim. Just keep pressing that round. Okay, until you reach the first part of where you started pressing, which is there. Now, we can just turn this over now again, and you can see that that's where our bottom hem's going to be. So we can just take the pin out and press this again. And put a pin in there. And again, just roll over the hem again. Now, of course, this is easier for beginners in alterations, because you know you're going to get a really nice, even look. And of course, it also gives you a nice guide of where you need to start stitching this hem. So let's just press more right round. Okay, and keep putting your pins in place here. Like that. And as you can see now, it's resulting in this rolled hem. that. Now we're nearly round. Like that. And one final press here. And we're round to the other side. So there we go. That's now our hem pressed. And you can see exactly where we need to stitch this. Now, the other technique, of course, is I'm going to be just rolling the hem like that once, rolling it again twice, and then stitching it, okay, without pressing it like this. Now, like I say, this way you've got to be a little bit more experienced to have the confidence in order to do that. But it is really quite easy to do. So now that we've got this pinned up, we can take this over to the sewing machine and finish off these jeans. Okay, so I'm just going to go over as well something about the needles that we're going to be using. Now, when you're sewing denim, you need 100 needle. Okay, so the thickest needle, and this is known as a denim needle. Otherwise, the smaller, thinner needles will snap. So you need a real substantial needle. Now I'm going to be using 100 for this. You need a walking foot or a jeans foot, okay? And make sure that you put your buttonhole thread in the bobbin and the normal thread threaded along the top of the machine coming through the needle. You need to pull your jeans through to the correct way, okay? As you can see here, they're not inside out anymore. And it's just easier to stitch them like that. Now, I always start from the inside leg seam, okay? Now, there's going to be a lot of bulk here going over these parts here, okay? So just take your time over these, and, you know, hopefully your needle won't snap, because there is a lot of bulk here, but just take your time. So I'm going to start off near the centre inside leg seam, okay, and just start stitching along. Like, as you can see, I'm just taking my time over this bulk, because there really is a lot of bulk there. Okay, and just stitch. And of course we've got this guide because that's where we press this seam before. Okay, so you just, as you go along, take your pins out. Yeah, that's looking okay. Okay, and of course you've got the other side. So again, just take your time over the bulk part. Just slow down, you know, when you get to the other side of the bulk. Just take your time. That's it, we're over both bulks now. Until we reach our original stitching. So backstack, which then completes our hem. And as you can see, that really is a nice stitched hem. Okay, and of course the thick bulk of the buttonhole thread is showing on the outside of your jeans, and the standard thread is on the inside, which of course people don't see. This is what they're bothered about, this here. Now, I do get a lot of people asking me a lot again about this sort of rippled effect. Now, if I get the cut off, as you can see here, you've got this rippled effect, you see here from before. Now, that will come into your jeans over time when they're washed, okay? Because what happens is the fabric just sort of bunches together automatically, so that will appear over time. Now we'll go over to the other leg this time. Now this is just an easier way to do it, it's quicker. So we're going to fold over the fabric, the 1 centimetre, okay, and then fold it again, like that. And just put that under the foot and start stitching. Now we've got this bulk here. Now this really is quite bulky. But like I say, take your time, make sure that this goes under the foot. Just take your time, and as you go, make sure that this hem is always rolled. Now my needle got stuck there because of the bulk. So what you can do, if you get stuck, alright, the needle won't snap, but just help it with the flywheel on the side of your machine. Okay, so it looks as though this part here was definitely the thicker part. I mean, we must be going over something like 8 layers of denim there, to be honest with you. Just keep stitching along. Now industrial sewing machines just go over that as if it's butter, they really do. But of course the domestic machines are not like that, so just take your time. And just keep rolling the hem over as you go, making sure that it's that 1 centimetre, and then roll again 1 centimetre. Just keep doing that as you go. Roll the hem, stitch, roll the hem. So stitch, roll the hem, and stitch again. And we're going over the other part of bulk, and there's a lot less bulk at that side. So obviously the one side of jeans is a lot thicker than the other side. So just keep going, roll the hem, stitch, roll the hem, like that, and stitch. Now it's all about control and just rolling this hem over correctly. Okay, and we're now back to our original stitches. Back tack. And that finishes our jeans. Okay, so there we go. That's our jeans now finished. Okay. And I've now showed you how to do both styles, but as you can see, both styles are exactly the same when you finish them. So it's up to you which method you choose, but I would start off with the first method of ironing, then stitching, and then when you get more confident, just roll the hem on the sewing machine with your fingers and just stitch it that way. So that is now our jeans finished on how to shorten a pair of jeans.